Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Formula One show on a Monday. Driver Spotlight. We're going to be looking in. We're going to focus in. If we're not talking Formula One race weekends, race reaction, we're going to go back in time here. We're going to go bring up the legends of the sport. Now, we've done it with Senna, Schumacher, Fangio. Today, we're going to talk about another beast of a Formula One driver. There's no doubt about it. This guy is in the top 10. He is in the top 10. Formula One has always been a theater of noise, right? The engine screams, the commentators roar, Murray Walker, legend himself, the fans chanting, the media prints its headlines in black and bold. I mean, we're going back to these days here. Some drivers feed that noise. They thrive on it. They demand the spotlight. Senna with his just charisma, mystique, and utter dominance and brilliance. Prost with his politics, no doubt about it. The most political driver that has ever walked the earth. No two ways about it. You'd had Schumacher with his aura of intimidation. The guy would walk around the paddock with this just... maybe cocky's the wrong word, but to hell with it. We'll go this, I'm better than you and no one exists around me. I mean, it's just unreal. Verstappen, now I'm not putting Verstappen in the top greats, absolutely not. But, Verstappen has that, he's got that aura like these guys, right? I will give him that. He's got the aggressive, the aggressor, the fighter, the warrior, and this is the type of thing that these are loud men in sport. These guys are great. They're great, and they don't just drive the cars fast. They've got that aura, they've got that charisma in the pit lane. But every so often, a driver comes along who doesn't need the noise. He doesn't want the noise. And a driver who can sit quietly at a press conference, speak in just a flat tone, barely raise his eyes, and still command the respect of the entire grid. A driver who, once the visor's down, doesn't need to tell you who he is, because the lap time just did it for him. And ladies and gentlemen, that man today we're talking about was Mika Häkkinen. This guy he wasn't flamboyant, he wasn't controversial, he wasn't a headline machine, he wasn't but when the lights went out, Häkkinen was disturbingly, terrifyingly fast. There's no two ways about it. I would put him in the top 3 of all time when it came to qualifying. That was his specialty. He was scary how fast he was. I mean, I've watched Senna. I think, guys, if you all know me, Senna, to me, he is without a shadow of a doubt the GOAT, the greatest of all time. He was insane in qualifying. He was the best at qualifying too, at racing as well. He was the greatest of all time in qualifying. But Mika Häkkinen, he actually genuinely scared me how fast that guy was in qualifying. Very close to Ayrton Senna for qualifying. Now, as a racer, that's where he did lack. I mean, a little bit, right? Because even his move, and we'll get into that, his move on Schumacher in Belgium was phenomenal. But again, if we're talking, levels, right? If we're comparing, is he a qualifier versus racer? Is he a racer versus qualifier? You know what I mean? We're getting to Uber. We're nitpicking here. You know what I mean? So don't get me wrong. Believe me. It just, the stopwatch became the guy's megaphone. His lap times screamed louder than any soundbite, louder than any scandal, louder than any politics, man. And for a few brilliant, blazing years in the late 1990s, Häkkinen was not just one of the fastest men alive. At the time, he was the best in the world. And the stats are hard facts. 2 world championships, back to back, 98 and 1999. And 20, I think, is it? Hang on, I got it here. 20 Grand Prix victories, 51 podiums, 26 pole positions, 25 fastest laps, 5 hat-tricks, pole, win and fastest lap in a single weekend. The complete domination package here, lads. And beyond the stats, the reputation, Michael Schumacher himself, a man who respected almost nobody, but oh boy, did he have some fear and respect for this guy. Even Schumacher, right? Apart from Senna, of course. He was the guy Schumacher feared. You think about that? Think about that. Schumacher was one of the greats of all time. Top 3 of all time. Now, I've put him number 2, right behind Senna, and then Fangio 3. But Schumacher actually feared the guy. That's saying something, lads. That is saying something. And what makes it more remarkable is that Häkkinen should never have been there at all. You know, Adelaide 95, a tyre failure, a sickening crash into the wall. Sickening. We can't show you that footage. A skull fracture, unconscious, not breathing. Doctors slicing open his throat to keep him alive. And what is it called? A trachectomy, I think, performed on the grass beside a racetrack here, lads. You know, for most men, that's the end. It's over. You're done. For Häkkinen, it was the beginning. It really was in many ways, because he didn't just come back. He became sharper, faster, hungrier, deadlier. This is the story of a man who started a kart in Vanta, Finland, and at 5 years old, crashed into a barrier in his first outing, and instead of walking away, got back in and kept driving. This is the story of a man who fought his way up through Formula Ford. Formula Ford, Formula Opel, British Formula 3, clashed with Schumacher at Macau in 1990. I mean, these guys in Formula 3, they knew each other. So, you know, in a duel that foreshadowed one of Formula 1's deadliest rivalries, it really was, and who served his time in a struggling Lotus team, learned patience as a McLaren test driver, stunned the paddock by out-qualifying Senna. Oh yeah, that's when people woke up and realized, oh dear Lord. Oh dear Lord. This is the story of Häkkinen, lads. The flying Finn, the quiet storm, the world champion who, in many ways, conquered death, or he came right there, conquered Schumacher, and left Formula 1 with legacy as sharp as a knife edge, as precise as a qualifying lap, and enduring as the respect of the greatest rival he ever faced. Ladies and gents, I got Mika Häkkinen for you.
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move, he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front, what a move from 5th all the way to the lead in lap 1.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter Walsh. Now, it's Vanta, Finland, September 28th, 1968. And Häkkinen is born into the world where, you know, in many ways, survival is a culture at that time, not a slogan. And winters stretch long and brutal up there. The national character is carved in silence and persistence in sisu. That word, sisu, it doesn't translate easy. It's not just courage, lads. It's not just grit. It's an unyielding willpower and a stubbornness against the impossible, the refusal to bow to fate. And for Häkkinen, sisu would be both his armor and his fuel. And at just 5 years old, I started at 10, but 5, you know, rents him out a kart in Helsinki. The little boy climbs in, fires it up, and slams straight into the barrier. Bang. Crash, bang, game over for most kids. That's tough for any kid, all right? But Mika doesn't always walk away. He doesn't, my man. He doesn't cry. He gets back in. He keeps driving. That moment becomes the foundation stone of a career. Resilience, persistence, stubborn speed. And through the 70s and 80s, like, Häkkinen storms through the Finnish karting. He collecting wins, the battles, the titles. He battles against future world championship champions like Schumacher, etc. Mika Salo back in the day, he didn't win the world championship, but he was in F1. The Finnish motorsport scene, it was small, tight-knit, but fiercely competitive. But by the time he's in his teens, it's kind of obvious. Häkkinen isn't just good. This guy is pretty goddamn special. And in 1987, he wins the Nordic Formula 4 Championship. By 98, he's making waves in the UK. And the heartland of junior single-seaters, it's the heart. It's the beating pulse, lads, of single-seaters in England, the United Kingdom, British motorsport. And he finishes second in the British Formula Ford, then graduates to Formula Opel. Each rung of the ladder climbs, and then the breakthrough. He wins the British F3. In Heat 2, all he has to do is shadow Schumacher. Don't risk anything. Just follow him home, and the victory is his. But that wasn't Häkkinen. He doesn't want to shadow. He wants to pass. Now, that's a part I didn't necessarily agree with him here on. Not necessarily agree with him on. Sometimes there's no need. And in a way, that's a chink in the armor, lads, because he didn't show the maturity of staying exactly where he is. Now, Schumacher, if you swing the door open for Häkkinen, okay then. Okay. But it's a big, big risk, man, going for that move, especially when you don't need to. And he just didn't have to do it. He didn't have to do it, and puts it ahead of Senna. Outqualifies him. It's outrageous. Senna, furious. The paddock is just overwhelmingly shocked. This quiet Finn, the test driver, has just beaten the greatest qualifier at his own game. On his very first try. What? Like that moment tells the truth. Häkkinen's one lap pace, it is world class. And the McLaren years begin, but they're not easy. With Honda gone, McLaren's power units are underwhelming now at this stage. And first Ford, then Peugeot, and then Mercedes. And, each season I think was transitional. Mika collects podiums, races good, really well. But victories, they eluded him. He's waiting for the car, for that moment, for the stars to align. And then the darkest moments of Adelaide. Still back to it. Still back to it, man. Professor Sid Watkins and his team arrive, and they perform an emergency tracheostomy. Can't even say it. It was insane how he came back from that. Story of Häkkinen, his rise to the top. In many ways, it begins at Jerez in 1997, at the end of the year, the last round of the year. Now, give me a bit of rope on this one, lads. The European Grand Prix. It really is remembered as the wackiest, freakiest qualifying session the world has ever seen. In fact, some people think that the thing was staged. It was set up, right? It was so wacky. Three men, Villeneuve, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and Michael Schumacher, all get the exact same time. Now, when I say exact same time, we're going down to 3 digits after the second. It was like, whatever. Well, I can't remember, but it was, 1 minute 17, and then dot, 3 more digits. 3 more digits, and all 3 digits were the exact same. Identical. I mean, YouTube this, lads. It was insane. Oh, here we go. We have it here. 1 minute, 21 seconds, 0.072. 0.072. Now, on paper, a statistical miracle. By the rules, a man who set it first keeps pole, right? So Villeneuve lines it up front. And, the tension's nuclear. The race explodes into drama, lads. Schumacher collides with Villeneuve. That was unbelievable. And the stewards later disqualify him from the championship. Well, he was out of the championship at that stage anyway. He was off into the gravel. Villeneuve limps the car home damaged to take the crown. And, David Coulthard first, Mika Häkkinen second. and they're after years of waiting, after years of midfield frustration, Häkkinen wins his first Formula One Grand Prix. And it was overdue, his 96th start, but it matters less how long it took and more that it finally arrived. And in that moment, the question mark over Häkkinen's career vanished, gone. He's no longer quick but winless. He's a Grand Prix winner. And once the first one comes, they can get a little easier. There's no such thing as an easy championship, but it can get a little easier. You know what I mean? You got the monkey off your back. And then, 98, jeez, rewrites the regulation. Formula One rewrite the regulations. The cars shrink 2 meters wide to 1.8 as far as I remember. I could be wrong on that one, lads. The tires are grooved. That was just horrendous. 4 grooves on the rears, 3 on the front. It's just awful stuff. Ugly. Aerodynamic shifts. Teams are scrambling. McLaren armed with Adrian Newey. Genius. Nails the thing. That car was a masterpiece. It was a masterpiece in that year. And Melbourne opening round that year, McLaren, they're untouchable, lapping the field, and then there's wins at Brazil, Spain, Monaco, Austria, Germany. There was more, but there was 8 victories, 9 poles, 5 fastest laps. Yeah, I remember the stuff of Häkkinen and Schumacher and Senna. He dominated Schumacher, and he just, and Suzuka, 1998. Oh man. The title's on the line. The world is watching. I mean, it was so tense. Häkkinen is seriously calm. He makes the start, leads, controls, wins, champion of the world. McLaren's first since Senna in 1991, and Finland's first since Keke Rosberg. I think it was in 1982, maybe. Think so. But that was the start of when Schumacher went, oh dear Lord. Uh-oh. And then the numbers from 88 to 99, they were awesome. You have to remember here too, lads, right? Hamilton's got the most race wins, over 100, which is still, jeez, it's unbelievable, that figure. It's unreal. But there's more races in the years now than there was back in those days. Okay, so if you are having a really awesome year and you're getting momentum, it's a lot easier to start racking up the numbers here, lads. Let's just call this what it is. And I'm not having to go off Hamilton. I'm not. It's just the way it is. And then Spa in the year 2000, the Belgian Grand Prix. Oh dear Lord. Schumacher leads. Häkkinen's behind, hunting. The laps count down. Häkkinen attacks into Lecombe. Schumacher swerves. They block. They touch. A brush of wheels at 300 kilometers an hour. Let's make no mistake about it. Schumacher always plays it hard. Mika, he lives to fight again, And next lap, they're up the Kemmel Straight. And, Schumacher in front, back marker in the middle. Häkkinen goes for the fake. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable, Now, drivers do these things all the time, but it was just the way the back marker too, the timing. It was almost like Häkkinen knew this was coming, and it definitely blew the socks off Schumacher. I'm telling you now, guaranteed it blew the socks off Schumacher, and the crowd, they were gasping. Commentators lost their voices. Murray Walker, dear Lord. Ron Dennis later calls it one of the greatest overtakes in Formula One history. And it was. It really was, lads. Fans decades later still call it the single greatest move ever made. Now, you can argue with me on that one. You cannot argue me on that one. It's definitely in the top 3. There's no two ways about it. It's got to be. It's got to be in the top 3 of all time. And after the race, he approaches Schumacher, calm, measured, ice cold, but pointed, don't put me on the grass at 300 kilometers, buddy. This is life and death. And it was. Schumacher nods, you can tell. Schumacher's not listening to this. Now, that was disrespect from Schumacher, no doubt. But Schumacher admitted that Häkkinen was the rival, man. It does. It actually gets me emotional thinking about those days, watching these two go at it. You had the Senna Prost, you've got the Häkkinen Schumacher. I mean, it's just insane. The Suzuka 2000, the title decider, Schumacher versus Häkkinen, winner takes all. Mika makes the start of his life. He launches like a bullet, leads into turn one. Ferrari are flawless in the pits. Schumacher gets the jump. Ferrari seal it. Michael wins the championship with Ferrari. Ferrari's first since 1979. It was an unreal race. Unreal. Now, this is where this race was where you see the greats just have that little edge over the brilliant. Now, Häkkinen was exceptional. He was on the border of one of the greats to brilliant. I think maybe, I'm sort of back and forth here, I gotta admit. No, he is one of the greats. See, here I go again. I'm up and down like a yo-yo. He is one of the greats. This is why I'm even doing this podcast about him. But I suppose when you put him up against Senna and Schumacher or a Fangio, it's a different story. It is. And I hate saying that. I hate it because he is in the top 10 of all time, the guy. He is. When the season ended in 2001, Häkkinen kind of stood at a crossroads. Now, I think he was 33, maybe 34, maybe around that. That's still very young, lads. Two-time world champion. The man who went toe-to-toe with Schumacher and beat him. He did beat him. But again, what we were talking about a minute ago, in Suzuka, it started to rain. And they were on slicks. And that's where Schumacher just pipped him. Just. And I mean just. And he announced in a softly way that he's doing a sabbatical. Pause, not a full stop. That's how it was sold. But in reality, he never returned. And instead, the torch passed to another Finn. Raikkonen. 21-year-old guy, I think was he 21, 20? Your rookie with one season under his belt stepped in to Häkkinen's McLaren seat. That's not easy, man. And it was poet, one flying Finn to another, where Häkkinen was calm and polite. Raikkonen was blunt and icy. Very similar, but it was all air for them. And for Finland, Formula 1 remained a national treasure thanks to Mika Häkkinen. There's no two ways. So, what did he leave behind? Let's bring it up on screen here now again. Häkkinen, 161 starts, 20 wins, 26 pole positions, 51 podiums, 25 fastest laps, and 5 hat-tricks. Back-to-back world championships. Victories, Monaco, Silverstone, Spa, Suzuka. Yeah, this guy became the first Finn to ever win more than one Formula 1 title. It's going mental, and he remains, one second now, he remains only one of 34 drivers in the history of sport to have won multiple world championships. That's no easy task, ladies and gentlemen. But stats are only part of the story. Häkkinen's career, it's defined by the moments, the aura, the respect. Spa 2000 is replayed every year by Formula 1. I mean, it is. Let's call it what it is. It's often billed, like we were talking about, as one of the greatest overtakes in the sport. And it was. But, it was Senna, Prost, the fiery genius versus the professor, they called him. And then we had Häkkinen and Schumacher. And in many ways, the way we're talking about charisma, Verstappen with the aggression, Senna with his flamboyant, just sheer animal magnetism of charisma and fire, mystique, like a poet. And Häkkinen lacked it, but maybe that was his. Maybe that was his aura, you know? The ice cold, just blank. Maybe there is charisma in that in many ways. And, you know, when the most respected guy to Schumacher was Häkkinen. Now, definitely, I think Schumacher would have called Senna the GOAT. No question. But Senna wasn't around for long when Schumacher was coming in. And Senna and Häkkinen and Schumacher, they did race a lot together. And being one of the greats of all time like Schumacher, and to be scared of a driver, that's insane, man. That is insane. He was intimidated by Senna. He was scared of Häkkinen. You know? So while we wrap this up, why was he so bloody good, Mika Häkkinen? Because, I mean, okay, look, first, he was fast without needing drama. He was fast without needing drama. And he was fearless without needing recklessness. And because he was human enough to cry at Monza. That was awesome. I don't mean it's awesome watching somebody cry, but you know what I mean? But strong enough to come back at win at Suzuka. It was unreal. But he then, you know, he survived death in Adelaide. Turned it into steel, into clarity. Because when he passed Schumacher at Spa in 2000, we're coming back to that again, he didn't just win a race. He wrote his name into the eternal highlight reels of motorsport. Mika Häkkinen didn't need to tell you he was great. He didn't need a catchphrase. He didn't need a brand. He didn't need to shout it from the rooftops. The stopwatch, it told you. The championship wins. 2 world championships back to back. That tells you. And Michael Schumacher told you. And that, in the end, maybe that's the loudest legacy of all. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mika Häkkinen.
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front. What a move from 5th all the way to the lead in lap 1.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter. Walsh.